back to Diamonds and Smiles. Today is dedicated to, well, to two things. First, Rick Riordan, which is why I'm on the floor. I have this wonderful Rick Riordan shelf, which I'm going to give you guys a tour of today and kind of talk about Rick Riordan's different books under his imprint. One of the most asked questions I get is in regards to Rick Riordan. As you guys know, he's my favorite author, and I know a lot of you guys haven't read any of his books and are not sure where to start, especially now that he has so many books out, as you guys can see. Not all of these are books written by him. He does have an imprint now called Rick Riordan Presents, which is the most amazing imprint. Absolutely love Rick Riordan Presents. I wish Rick Riordan created his own imprint sooner when I was like younger, probably like 12, 13. But basically all the books that he hasn't written but are under his imprint are very similar to like the Percy Jackson series. They're middle grade books that focus on a different sort of mythology, and all of them are written by different authors from different cultural backgrounds, and so they're all own voice novels. But number one, I'm gonna give you guys a tour of all these books back here and kind of like walk you through the Rick Riordan collection of everything he's written and where to start and what books I think you'll like depending on, I don't know, what you like. Second thing, if you guys can see here, this shelf right here, we are going to organize it today. But I recently organized the very first bookshelf. Decided to do a rainbow bookshelf for the first time ever, and it actually turned out pretty well, and believe it or not, it's still, well, what I consider organized. I decided today that I'm going to rainbow this second bookshelf here because I definitely have enough colors to do a rainbow on at least this one. I don't know about this one, but yeah, so I'm slowly working my way through all of my shelves, but eventually it'll all get organized. Eventually. Today's video is in paid promotion with Disney Book Group for the new release of a book that is under Rick Riordan Presents imprint. It is The Storm Runner by J.C. Cervantes, and I'm so excited about this because this novel is entirely based around Maya mythology, which I've never read about before. I think in my anthropology class we touched on it a little bit, but I honestly have never read anything based around Maya mythology. It follows our main character, a boy who is living in New Mexico, and he has a physical disability which makes it really hard for him, especially in school. He's a middle schooler. But similar to Percy Jackson and how Percy Jackson has dyslexia and then discovers that it's a sign that he's half god, our main character in this book, he discovers that his disability is actually a clue into his family history, and he later finds out that that connects him to the Maya gods and kind of just thrusts him into this whole world. Maya gods are real and there's all this crazy action happening. But yeah, thank you so much to Disney Book Group for sending this to me. All right, let's take it back to this shelf and we're gonna get into all the books that I have here. So we're gonna briefly kind of go over them and where to even start with Rick Riordan if you're new to him, new to his book, and then we shall get into organizing this bad boy. So this should be fun. Okay, so welcome to Rick Riordan 101. I believe honestly that Rick Riordan was probably like the first love of my life, and I mean, I had back when I first read his books, when I first read the Percy Jackson series, which is where we'll start, I wasn't on social media or anything yet, and so I had no idea who Rick Riordan was. I hadn't just watched all of his interviews, which I later, when I got older, went back and watched all of his author interviews and lectures and things that he has on the internet about him. I gently stalked him, I guess you could say. But yeah, no, I remember reading his books for the first time, and it was like the craziest thing, and I was so inspired by him as well. Start with the Percy Jackson series, which is his very first series, or actually, I'm not sure if he wrote books before this. I believe he was a teacher, and so it was his son that actually inspired him to write this series. Okay, so I absolutely recommend everyone in the world, if you haven't read any of Rick Riordan's books, to start with the Percy Jackson series. Now, this is the new cover edition, but this is the original cover. This is the cover that I fell in love with. So the Percy Jackson series is entirely based on Greek mythology, and the reason why I love it so much is I was interested in mythology when I was like 12, 13 years old, but I didn't know much. To the library to find books on Greek mythology, a lot of the text was really, really dense, and as like a 12-year-old, you know, it was like academic text that I was looking at, and I was just like, what what is this? Percy Jackson is a great introduction into mythology. And I think especially for like younger readers and stuff, it makes it really fun, and it makes sort of these like gods seem almost human and gives them very like human personalities. But Percy Jackson is amazing. It follows our main character Percy, who is quirky and funny and a little naive. I love the most about Rick Riordan's books is that they're very much focused on friendship. Friendship and adventure are like the biggest themes that you'll notice in all of his books. So for anyone who's older watching, who's afraid that they'll just not be able to get into it because it's written for a younger audience, if you're someone who likes fast-paced adventure mythology books that are mainly focused on friendship, I think you'll still enjoy the Percy Jackson series. Start with the Percy Jackson series. From there, my favorite, which, oh my god, like I don't know if I love the Percy Jackson series or the Hero of Olympus series more. My original copies didn't make it when I moved, so I had to rebuy the series, and I haven't reread them since I first read them. So yeah, that's why they're still in plastic wrap, but I have read them. This is just my little collector's box. This series, if you, like I said, if you're someone who's older that's wanting to get into Percy Jackson, like just get through the Percy Jackson series so that you can get to this series, and then that's when it starts becoming less of a middle grade series and more of a YA. This is 100% middle grade, but as you get into this series, it gets more, there's some romance in it. There's some young adult stuff in it. The Heroes of Olympus. Okay, so it's still following Greek mythology, but it's mixing in Roman mythology. So in the Percy Jackson series, we follow a group of kids that are half Greek god and half human, right? So demigods. They have powers, they have abilities, they can fight, and they're just, yeah, they're like this hybrid of god and human. In this book, it's the same idea, but with Roman gods. Greek gods and Roman gods, they both exist, which is super cool. There's two different camps. So there's a camp just like Camp Half-Blood, but for kids that are half Roman god. And it's super cool. We get a whole new cast of characters. We still get some of our main characters from this book, which is awesome. The storyline just kind of continues on and mixes with this whole new camp that we have here. The best thing about this one is that our characters are older. So, you know, instead of being 12, 13 years old, we're getting into like 15, 16, 17. I think there's a character who's 18 as well, a main character. It's been so long since I've read it. We get older characters. It feels much more like a YA series, and the stakes get higher, I guess you could say, you know, because this is kind of older characters, more stuff's happening, and it's a little more mature. Recently, we have graphic novels that have started coming out. So if you're someone who really wants to get into Percy Jackson but just doesn't want to read it, there is a graphic novel option for at least the first book in the Heroes of Olympus series, and I believe the first book in the Percy Jackson series. So yeah, definitely check these out. Also, a graphic novel for the Red Pyramid, which is what I'll get into now, because the Red Pyramid, if you're a fan of Egyptian mythology, which is, oh my god, Greek and Egyptian mythology are pretty neck and neck for me. Here we have the Kane Chronicles. I have always called it the Red Pyramid series because that's the name of the first book in this series, but it's technically called the Kane Chronicles. This is the new edition of the covers, which are absolutely gorgeous, but I also have the original covers. Again, these are the covers that got me into reading, which are just, oh, the nostalgia feel a lot different. Like the writing style feels a little bit different from the Percy Jackson series. These ones, even though I believe they're middle grade as well, they read more like YA books. So if you're someone who just can't do middle grade, hop into this one, hop into the Red Pyramid series. You don't have to have read, you haven't, what's English? What's the English conjugation? You didn't have to have read this series to read this series. Is that the proper way to say that? Probably not. But anyways, yes, this series follows, oh my god, the characters in this series are so much fun, and they're very, very different from the characters in the Percy Jackson series. This book follows a brother and a sister, and they go on all these crazy adventures, and there's so many characters. I think there's a few more characters in this series than there are in this one. But once again, if you want to get into it, but you can't commit to like the 400 pages, there is a graphic novel edition, and I've read it, and it is awesome. It is an exact depiction of the first series, or the first book. Like everything that happens in the book happens in this. Once again, it's way more condensed down because it's a graphic novel, but it's still super awesome. So if you're a fan of graphic novels and you want something that has to do with Egyptian mythology, highly recommend this one. Then we have a bunch of different books that have been released under Rick Riordan's imprint. Adusha and The End of Time, which was so good. I read this back when did I read this? But this book has to do with Hindu mythology, so if you're interested in that, I highly recommend this one. This book was not written by Rick Riordan, but it still has that really like light, fun, fast-paced feel to it. And I've learned so much about Hindu mythology from this book. And then of course we have the Magnus Chase and the Gods of Asgard series. These books I have not gotten into yet. They literally just sit on my shelf and stare at me, reminding me that I need to read them. Books have to do with Norse mythology, which is super, this is like probably the top of my list of the next Rick Riordan book that I need to read. Covers are absolutely gorgeous. I think these have to be my favorite covers out of all of Rick Riordan's books, just because the colors and the detail is just incredible. And there are also, I forgot to mention, companion novels that go with the Percy Jackson series. So we have Greek gods and Greek heroes. These are basically guides to the different gods and different heroes that are in the Percy Jackson series, but they're way more detailed and elaborate, and they're really, really fun. They're told from Percy's perspective, but there's artwork in them, which is super cool. But these are awesome. I actually recommend these. Like, you could read these outside of the series if you just want to learn more about Greek mythology and you want a really fun sort of narration. I highly recommend these. I don't know if you kind of get away with it in school if you're like referencing them, but they're really fun to read if you just want to learn more. And then the very last thing I'm going to mention is, oh my god, there's so many companion novels to the Percy Jackson series, to the Heroes of Olympus series. This little book right here brings back so many memories. I remember when I finished reading the Kane Chronicles and this came out, the survival guide, which basically is sort of like a survival guide for the world, and all the characters that are in it. He also has like little manuals and stuff. Like, this is the Magician's Manual, for which kind of plays into the story, but all these sort of little companion things that go along with the stories, which you will understand once you read the stories, and if you're like a diehard fan like me, you read them and get all the little extra companion stuff because that's what you do when you're a fan, girl. Okay, so that was my quick little guide to Rick Riordan, a little introduction for anyone who is trying to get into Rick Riordan books, but now the thing that I dread. No, actually, I'm really excited. I love when I do like organization videos, because then it feels like I'm not organizing and I'm just like talking to you guys, but I'm actually multitasking and organizing my books. But I shall be organizing this shelf, more specifically just these top 3 shelves. This 4th shelf down here, I just basically have all my art copies of books, so I'm not gonna really mess with this because I kind of like having this here. Kind of like what I did with this rainbow shelf, I'm just gonna rainbow the top 3. Yeah, partially because I don't want to mess up this one, and then also because I'm kind of lazy. Okay, so I am so excited. We have a nice array of colors. I think I'm gonna try and match it up with the colors on this shelf. So we're gonna kind of continue the white, and then the blue, green, and then red. Yeah, so we'll see how it goes. I'm gonna start by pulling all the books off, and then we're gonna go to the floor and separate them into their little color piles. I feel like this process will be a lot faster because I have experience with rainbowing bookshelves now. All the books off the shelf. It's a lot more. It always feels like way more books when I pull them off. Like when I just look at them, I'm like, oh, that's not a lot. And then I put them on the ground and I'm just like, let's start organizing into piles. I'm gonna create a white pile, a blue-green pile, a yellow pile, just like all the colors of the rainbow. What shall we talk about while we do this? Last time I told you guys about my little spooky bookstore story, but I don't know what we should talk about today. The options are endless. Oh, you know what I forgot to talk about, which thank God, thank you to everyone who commented about this, because I totally forgot. One of my favorite thriller suspense novels is You by Caroline Kepnes, and the show has, oh my god, TV adaptation, the TV version just came out and I'm so excited. Like I said, I totally forgot that it premiered, was it 3 weeks ago? I think there's like 3 episodes out right now. I haven't watched any of them, but I'm so excited because the trailer just looks incredible, and I was so scared that they would do this wrong, but I believe Lifetime is the one producing it, and I trust them. I trust Lifetime. But yeah, so I'm super excited about that. For anyone who doesn't know, You is basically a really crazy like stalker story told from the second person, and it's incredible. It's one of my favorite, like whenever people ask me for a really good suspense thriller book that's different from, I guess, like the suspense thriller books that you normally read, I constantly recommend You, because it's just one of those stories that it's like, I walked into the bookstore and I saw you there, and it just makes you feel like you're the character that our main character Joe is like stalking. I highly recommend it. It's a really creepy, really explicit, very, very much an adult thriller. So just warning for the youngins, totally worth reading. And the second book, Hidden Bodies, I've only read the first 100 pages of, and I need to reread, especially if the first season of the adaptation does well, because then they'll probably continue on with the second book. Oh, you guys remember this booktubeathon memory? Oh, you know what book I need to read? Has anybody read Dangerous Girls? I've had this book forever, and like I said, I'm a huge thriller suspense lover, so let me know if you've read this one, and if it's worth the read, because I'm trying to create my TBR list for like spooky fall October reads, and I'm considering putting this on there, so let me know. But yes, I am currently deciding between Evelyn Hugo, The Cruel Prince, and rereading Vicious before I get to meet Victoria Schwab and before Vengeful comes out. Those are like the 3 books I'm like, I don't know which book I want to read next. Do you guys ever have that dilemma where it's like you want to read like more than one book, but you also don't want to start more than one book because you know it'll just be like a mess? So you don't read anything until you can decide what book you want to read. So I think I have majority of these pretty sorted. So I'm going to start putting them on the shelf now. Excited to see how they kind of blend with my other rainbow shelf over here. Here is the finished product. So we have the white books that blend with the other white books on this shelf. And then we kind of have blues and blacks, and then blues and blacks. And then we have reds and yellows, and reds and yellows, and some pinks. And then we have, we're not even gonna look at those shelves. These are my finished shelves. I'm honestly really proud. I feel like it's not the most beautiful rainbow bookshelf, mainly because I don't have like enough of each color to make it like seamless, like fading into each color. But for what, you know, what I'm working with, I'm pretty proud of myself. So yeah, we'll see how long this stays organized before I have to organize again. Maybe I'll do by genre next time. You guys let me know in the comments what kind of organization you want, because rainbow bookshelf, I'm really liking it. I feel like it's kind of an aesthetic a little bit, but at the same time I feel like there might be a better organization out there. Anyways, until next time, keep reading, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye!